Hello, campers. Hi. Well, fall is here, and while we may be doing the tequila chicken this weekend beforehand, since we got down into the 50s last night, we're going to go ahead and for tonight we're going to do a pot roast. So I'm trying to get this done while I'm on my lunch break this time. So I'm going to take basically a 2.5 pound chuck roast here and set it up. Yeah, put a little rub and a little spices on it, and we're going to put it onto a frying pan just to sear it real quick, so we can get a quick sear on it before we throw it into the crock pot. So let that heat up so we can get the good sear on it. And for this, we're going to put, of course, you got to put a little meat tenderizer on it. That's an important thing. We're going to do the garlic herb, and I think I showed this to several of you, and I think it was in one of Chris's lives, the old Canadian steak rub. So I'm going to throw that on it real quick. We're going to sear it on both sides, try and get a sear around the sides of it, or the top of the bottom around the sides of it, and then go ahead and drop it into the crock pot here with the rest of the veggies. And it's going to be a fair amount of veggies in there too, because you got to have your veggies when you do this. Otherwise, all you're doing is cooking up a piece of meat. And while it's okay, it's not exactly what we're going after. So, I'll show you this. Get one side, both sides rubbed up so you can see it. It does make a little bit of a mess, not much. So go ahead and get that pressed in, rubbed all over. It's good. Get a little bit on the tenderizer on the sides. Don't worry so much about the seasoning on the sides. We'll get these other sides that were undercut. We flip it over and do the same thing over here. So I'm going to get the tenderizer on sides. There we go. On the other sides that were underscored. There we go. Garlic. Hello, garlic and herbs. Alright, that's it. They're not going to cooperate. I'm not coming out fast enough. So garlic and herb here. Pardon Misty in the background is on the phone. I don't even know if she knows I'm doing this. She won't a little bit though, because she will smell it. So, get that pressed in. And it's not really crucial you get a whole lot of seasoning in when you're doing the searing, because most of it's going to come in together once you get it into the crock pot and get everything going there. So we're going to take this over and drop it up for a sear. And then I'll show you what it looks like before we pop it into the crock pot. Alright, campers, I don't know if you can see this or not, or hear it. I know you can see it, but we got the sear all the way around on it. It's still sizzling just a little bit, so figured I'd try and pull it off and you could hear that a little bit. So this is going to help keep the juices in when we go to cook it, so that you don't end up with a piece of meat that just kind of falls apart into shreds like you do with pulled pork. So we're going to drop this into the crock pot, and then I'll show you the vegetables we're going to go ahead and add with it. It's going to be some potatoes. You're going to like the potatoes, it's kind of crazy. Carrots, celery, onion. I'm going to throw a little bit of green pepper in there because I got one green pepper in them. It's lonely, so we'll toss it in and see what happens with it. And depending on what it looks like, I might get a little crazy and add some diced tomato into it. So we'll see how this all stacks up. Show you the next steps. All right, folks, here we go. So we've got a nice little batch of mixed potatoes here. Probably something that some of you have not seen is the purple potato. I get a kick. They taste like the other potatoes. Just a little different taste to it. Perfectly good like everything else. But I found these about 4 or 5 years ago, and have used them in things like stews and that ever since. At the very least, popping these bad boys out, this triple Call it, yeah, triple. You've got the white or russet, the red potatoes and the purple potatoes. Popping this up on your guests and your family, at the very least, will cause some chat. But can also make for some interesting table talk. So we take these, I'm not even going to cut them up. We're just going to dump them straight in. And then I'm not going to bore you with the details. You've seen me cut up onions before. The carrots are going to go in as is, because these are small and they will cook up real nice and easy. And where did I put my scissors? There they are. Nothing worse than a disorganized cook. So make sure you got what you need out when you go to do this. Otherwise, you do what I do, which is fumble around the kitchen, which is not fun. So take this, and you're just going to dump in a healthy amount of carrots. And then to that, we're going to dice up the onions. We'll put 2 of them in this time, because that's a pretty good sized roast. And we're going to have lots of veggies in with it. So we're going to put the celery in as well. And then we're going to add a little more of the garlic and herb. Good shake in there. You want to put a good shake in with this because it's going to go in and get waterlogged, dissolved, diluted, whatever you want to call it. And you notice this time I didn't do anything rub-wise with the bouillon. So what we're going to use is we're going to use beef bouillon cubes this time. And we're going to take 4 of these bad boys and toss them down in here. And what's going to happen is they're going to cook up and add some extra flavor while the whole thing is popping away in the slow cooker. You know what? I'm not going to bother showing you. You know what these cubes are. You unwrap them, you throw them in. So I'll get that. I don't want you. You don't need to see me getting frustrated over that. So we get all the veggies cut up and added into it, and then we're going to put in a box of beef broth. And I thought for a little something different, instead of doing the family size, which will fill this up, we'll also add a little veggie broth, which will help bring out some of the flavor in the vegetables. Towards the end, we're going to throw in those gravy packs to thicken things up and make it a little more stew-like, a little less soup-like. And we'll show you as we go along. Hang on. Next thing is with all the veggies in, ready to go. All right, ladies and germs, here you go. Everything added in. You notice we have nice big chunky pieces of stuff, because that's when we get into the winter time and fall and winter time, it's stew time, and it calls for bigger, chunkier pieces of stuff. Not that delicate, more little frou-frou stuff that you get with spring and summer. Now, I told you, remember, we're a garlic family, so the one other thing we're going to do here is I do not have much garlic left in the squeeze bottle. So we're going to take that and pop what's left in here. And that's the end of that. And here we go. Broth time. Not to be confused with brothel time. 2 different things. So, beef goes in first. And you can see my little helpers are circling the wagon because they can smell stuff. Oh, can they smell this? So this is the beginning of the torture. Torture is 8 or 9 hours, depending on, some crock pots will go a little faster. If you get a smaller batch, it might go a little quicker too. But a little faster, 8 or 9 hours of smelling. This is a vegetable broth. We'll bring it up just to where you can see the liquid. There we go. They have a little left over. We'll figure out what to do with that. And we're going to put the cover on this, turn it on high, and just let it sit. And this is one of those easy meals. There's not a lot of prep. The only thing I really had to do was cut up the celery, cut up a green pepper, and you don't have to use a green pepper, but you can. You can use other stuff too. There's all kinds of root vegetables that are out there that go well with this. And the onion. Didn't cut up the meat, didn't cut up the potatoes. That all goes in as is. And you just let it cook. And you torture the house for about 8 or 9 hours with that wonderful smell. and then it's done and time to eat. So we'll plug this in as I get to the end of my work day. I'll come back in and we'll show you. By that point, it should be bubbling away. We'll take a peek at that. See if we need to stir things around a little bit, get some of these other veggies. And I also want to apologize for having a fit with the daggone bouillon cubes. I fought the cubes and the cubes won. So, but you can see we got one of them sitting up here. I put the other ones pretty much in the four corners, such as it is, to balance things out. And we'll make sure those get all dissolved and everything will be ready to go. So we'll show you in a few hours where we're at in the middle of cooking. By the by, guys, if you're wondering, prep time for that, plus the videotaping and gathering everything, was about 47 minutes. So I was able to actually do that and get that started at my lunchtime. So it's not a whole difficult thing to get rolling. All right, folks, here we go. Turn a little light on the subject. Hey, what do you know? You can see better. All right, so we've got it heating up here. Set the lid aside, and we're going to add a few more things in. I wanted to wait and give it a little bit of time to get started before we go. Add in about a tablespoon and a half of oregano. I'm going to add in about a teaspoon or two of smoked paprika. To that, give it a little smoky taste. About a half a teaspoon of ground mustard. A little shake there. And that's ground mustard. And that's the smoked paprika. And it's going to add in a little bit of thyme to it, but didn't have any, surprise, surprise. So we'll put a shake or two in of the Italian seasoning, because that's got a bunch of goodies in it. And last, but by far not least, we're going to put in a tablespoon or two, and this is where one that I actually do kind of measure out, of brown sugar, just to sweeten it up a little bit. Okay. With that said, we're going to mix it all up. Put the lime and the coconut and mix it all up. So I'm going to try and get these spices down into liquid so that they start gelling with everything, not just the veggies that they're on top of. And at the same time, get these down in here. Now this is almost ready to start boiling. So you can see the steam coming up. Next couple of hours, we're going to start really cooking away on this. There we go. And there we are. Next thing we'll do is show you once it's all done. Well, take that back. Next thing we'll do is show you when we're turning the liquid into gravy, and then we'll show you once it's all done. Hang on. All right, boys and girls, ladies and germs, here's the fun part. Now, to make this really working, because we didn't want to shred it up, what I'm going to do is pull the roast out. Notice it shrunk. So I'm going to bring it out and cut it into smaller pieces before it falls apart. So cut it into bite-sized pieces. We're going to put it back in. And set the gravy going. And then have it all ready to go. So basically the big part here is just cutting it into bite-sized pieces. You can see it's already almost to the point of where it's falling apart, which is good because that means your meat's soft. So get it back in there now, and in with the gravy and all the rest of the good veggies. I'll show you that in just a second here. It'll be Good to go. Yeah, I may have overdone it just a hair. That's all right. Not a big deal. Chuck roast is another one of those. It's real nice and soft, so it's pliable. And you can do a good bit of many things with it. So cut this up and get it dumped back in there with the veggies and the gravy and all that other yummy goodness. And we'll go to town on it in just a little bit. Sure. There we go. Nice bite-sized chunks there. Just enough to spread around. Come on now. In with the all the veggies and everything else, so you don't end up with a vegetarian pot roast. It'd be kind of weird. I guess it's doable. Might have to look at doing that. I know I owe the vegetarians a little something too, so we're gonna have to look at what kind of vegetarian stuff we can do here and keep everybody's interest. So make sure when you're doing this, you also get the pieces with the fat. Not a whole lot of gristle on this bad boy. So that's a nice thing. So just want to make sure you get the fat in here as well. Fat's not a bad thing, as long as you don't do gobbets and gobbets of it. Helps out with flavoring. There's a pain in the butt to cut through when it's cooked like this though. But not too bad. Not too bad at all. And of course you can use other roasts too. You could use a London broil, you could use a round roast, a rump roast. You can do just about any type of one you want for that matter. Heck, if you wanted to start with it, you could start out with beef stew cubes and just do it up from there. That works too. You know, it's just another way of going at it. I wouldn't try it necessarily with hamburger. Although, one day I might try and do well, no, I'm not going to go there. That's Mama's domain, is the beef vegetable soup. So, that and beef barley soup. And she has already pledged to me that she's going to do some of her cooking in front of you guys. So you get to hear her recipes too, which is really cool, because while I'm boring everybody with the American stuff, except the Canadians, she's going to turn around and bore the Canadians and thrill the Americans. So it kind of works. We call it the Can-Am connection. So, one of the things I'm really anxious and eager, besides her Thanksgiving turkey, which will be next week, because we've got to. There we go. That's got everything. Yeah, we got a few big pieces to cut down here. We'll do her turkey next week and show you off her Thanksgiving feast. So we'll do that. Get this back in the pot now. Make sure we got nobody that's crazy outrageous. Don't want anybody choking on stuff. That looks all pretty good. Alright, so we'll dump this back in, get the gravy going, and then I'll show you guys what it looks like with the gravy and everything all set up before we plate it up. Alright everybody, last little bit of tweaking before we let it sit down and finish up. First things, added 4 packets of McCormick brown gravy. That's what's powdered up at the top. And I took a look at it and, just decided I wanted to piddle with it a little bit more. You know, it's one of the neat things. You look at a recipe and you look at how it's coming along and you decide whether you want to make some changes or not. So we're going to add a can of corn into it. And, Mama likes this thing called chickpeas. So some of y'all call them garbanzo beans. Depends on what you want, but I'm going to add those in too. Just for a little more variety. And a little more vegetable. And a little something different. So, get everything in here. Get it all mixed up together. The potatoes are basically done. The onions, the celery, that's all done. The carrots are nice and, they're not mushy soft, but they're nice and soft. So got everything here. The idea is to get it all incorporated. You can see how the juices have turned with the gravy here. So what we're going to do is set this bad boy onto off for a little bit, because everything's all cooked. But as you can see, the gravy right now is really liquidy. What it needs to do is it needs to set up for a little bit. You can see how we still get some clumps of gravy here. So it needs to set up and cool off just a little bit to thicken up just a little bit. And if I don't like the way it's thickened up, I might come and add a little baking soda to it to help kind of encourage it along. But you can see here what we've ended up with is a nice thick stew. And you know, for the life of me, I can't decide whether I want to add that can of tomatoes in or not. I'm gonna have to think on that one. So for now, we'll shut it down, let it cool off for a little bit. You can see it's steaming away there, and thicken up, and we'll make the final decision. Again, the tomatoes are also cooked, so it's not a big thing to add them in and stir it up and have the flavor go through everything. So I'll give that some thought for a minute or three, and we'll decide what we want to do. The more I think about it, the more I think I want to add some tomatoes in, just for a little extra burst of flavor. So we'll see. All right. So I lost my mind. I followed my impulses and went ahead and put those tomatoes in with it. So, but see, it gives it a nice little extra flavor and some extra color in here. And got it plated up. There's a little something extra we do around here, is we like to dunk a little bread. Whoa! Earthquake drill. Dunk our bread with a little bit of butter into the gravy. It's a nice little extra comfort thing. Kind of like sopping it up with a dumpling. So that's how we do ours around here. This is yummy. I'm diving into this right now. There you are, folks. Chuck roast, pot roast, stew. Y'all have yourselves a good evening. Enjoy.